I do have someone called The Rock.
She says, even though I'm Spanish, you know I like that chocolate.
Oh! Like he would look at me and I'd be like,
fantastic. Are you okay, Betty?
I'm getting better.
There is a universal truth that no amount of fame, fortune, or red carpet experience can protect you from. The moment you are standing in front of someone you genuinely have a crush on, every ounce of composure you ever had simply evaporates. You forget how to form sentences. You forget how to stand. You forget, apparently, how to operate your own face. And here is the thing about celebrities. We spend so much time watching them be cool. They walk into rooms looking like they own the air inside them. They give interviews where every word lands perfectly. They accept awards with these graceful speeches that sound completely off the cuff, even though you know they practiced in the mirror for 3 weeks. But then they meet their crush. And suddenly they are just as awkward as the rest of us. Maybe even worse, because their awkwardness is being filmed by 17 cameras and broadcast to 11 million people. Today we are going through the moments that prove that underneath every Hollywood smile is just a regular person who absolutely cannot handle being near someone they find attractive. These are the confessions, the meltdowns, the mutual crushes that nobody knew were mutual, and the rejections so brutal they could make a grown adult cry in a parking lot. Let's get into it. We have to start with the moments where someone simply decides they are done pretending. No build-up, no easing into it, no reading the room. Just a full, unfiltered confession dropped in front of an audience, a co-host, and whatever cameras happen to be rolling. There is something almost admirable about it. Most people spend years circling around a crush, dropping hints so subtle the other person would need a decoder ring to pick them up. But every once in a while, a celebrity just throws the whole plan out the window and goes completely direct. The setup is always the same. An interview is moving along. The conversation is pleasant, professional, totally normal. And then something shifts. Maybe the host asks the wrong question. Maybe the guest just runs out of the energy it takes to pretend they are not completely captivated by the person sitting across from them. And what follows is one of those television moments that gets clipped, shared, screenshotted, and discussed in comment sections for the next 4 years. What makes these moments so compelling to watch is not just the confession itself. It is the reaction. The stunned pause before laughter. The way the audience collectively leans forward. The host who suddenly realizes they have completely lost control of their own show and is now just a bystander watching something unfold that nobody planned for. And then there are the cases where the confession comes back around. Where someone admits on camera to a crush they had years ago, and the person they had the crush on is sitting right there, hearing it for the first time, processing in real time while the whole room watches them do it. The psychology behind why we find these moments so entertaining is actually pretty well documented. Research in social psychology has long established that vulnerability, particularly unexpected vulnerability from people we perceive as high status, creates an almost immediate sense of connection and warmth in observers. When someone powerful steps off the pedestal, even briefly, we do not think less of them. We think more. Suddenly they feel real. Suddenly they feel like someone we might actually know. Which explains why a celebrity confessing a crush does not make them look foolish to audiences. It makes them look human. And in an industry that is built on maintaining a very specific image at all times, being human is genuinely rare. Now we escalate. Because a one-sided confession is one thing. A mutual crush that neither person knew about until this exact moment on camera? That is something else entirely. There is a very particular kind of energy that fills a room when two people find out simultaneously that they both had feelings for each other and both spent years doing nothing about it. It is part chaos, part disbelief, part the audience collectively screaming internally because they are watching two people realize something that, from the outside, looks completely obvious. Think about the timeline. Two people meet. They work together, maybe on a film set or at an industry event or through overlapping social circles. One of them develops a crush and spends weeks, maybe months, talking themselves out of it. Too complicated. Too risky. Probably not mutual. Better to just stay professional and pretend the feelings are not there. Meanwhile, on the other side of this equation, the exact same thing is happening. The other person is also developing feelings. Also talking themselves out of it. Also deciding to stay professional and keep things friendly and uncomplicated. And so both of them spend all of this time carefully not acting on something, carefully maintaining a friendly distance, carefully protecting what turns out to be a completely shared feeling. Until they end up on a talk show together. And a host asks the right question at the right moment. And the whole thing unravels in real time, right there in front of the cameras they both forgot were rolling. The look on people's faces in these moments is unforgettable. It is not quite joy and not quite embarrassment. It is somewhere in the middle. It is the expression of someone who has just been shown that all of that careful restraint was completely unnecessary, and who is now doing the math in their head on what might have happened if either one of them had just said something sooner. These moments work because they tap into something deeply relatable. Almost everyone has had a crush they kept quiet for reasons that felt very logical at the time. And almost everyone has wondered, at least once, whether the other person might have felt the same way. Watching two celebrities discover the answer live, on television, with nowhere to hide, it scratches that same itch. It is the fantasy version of getting to know. This is where things take a turn. Because we have talked about the confessions. We have talked about the mutual revelations. But we have not talked yet about what happens when the actual meeting occurs. When the person you have spent months building up in your head is suddenly standing directly in front of you, and every single thing you planned to say is gone. The gap between imagining meeting your crush and actually meeting your crush is one of the most brutally comedic distances in human experience. In your head, you have been cool about it. You have been charming. You said something memorable, maybe even a little witty, and they looked at you and something clicked and it went exactly the way you hoped. In reality, you open your mouth and what comes out is a completely unrelated thought about a movie you saw 3 months ago. Or you say something and they misunderstand it and you try to clarify and the clarification makes it worse. Or you are so focused on not acting like you have a crush on them that you overcorrect and end up being bizarrely stiff and formal in a way that is somehow more obvious than just acting normal would have been. Celebrities experience this exact phenomenon. Fame does not protect you from it. In fact, there is an argument that it makes it worse. Because most people who have a celebrity crush never have to face the possibility of actually meeting that person. The crush exists safely in the abstract. But when you are famous yourself, suddenly the abstract becomes very, very concrete. You are at the same premiere. You are on the same talk show. You are introduced at the same industry party. And suddenly the person you have spent considerable mental energy thinking about is right there, holding out their hand to shake yours, and your brain sends a distress signal that it absolutely did not prepare for. What tends to happen in these cases is fascinating. People either go completely quiet, reduced to single-syllable responses, and the kind of smile that looks like it is being held up by effort alone. Or they go the opposite direction, talking too much, filling the silence with whatever words happen to be available, saying things they would not have said if they had been operating at full capacity. Both responses are completely understandable. Both have been captured on camera more times than anyone involved would like to remember. And now we have to talk about the rejections. Because not every celebrity crush story ends with a mutual revelation or a heart-melting on-air confession. Some of them end with the other person politely but very clearly saying no. And then someone puts a camera on it. And then the internet finds it. There is a specific kind of pain to a public rejection. Regular rejection is already difficult to navigate. The experience, as psychologists have noted, activates some of the same neural pathways as physical pain. The brain processes social rejection and physical hurt in overlapping regions, which is why the phrase, "it actually hurts," is not just metaphorical. It is neurologically accurate. Now take that experience and add an audience. Add the knowledge that this moment is being recorded and will exist forever in some form. Add the fact that both you and the person who just turned you down are recognizable, so people will find this clip and share it and comment on it and turn it into a meme. The courage it takes to confess a crush in public, knowing the risk of exactly this outcome, is actually worth acknowledging. Most people, given those stakes, would simply never say anything. They would let the feelings sit quietly and unexpressed and take the safe road. The people who go for it anyway, who put the confession out there knowing it might land badly, there is something almost impressively reckless about that, even when it does not work out. The moments that are the hardest to watch are not the clean, decisive rejections. Those are almost easier. The worst ones are the ones where the rejection is soft enough that for a moment you think maybe it is not a rejection at all. And then it very much is. And that second beat, That moment of hope followed immediately by disappointment is somehow even more painful than just hearing no outright. One of the great hazards of being famous in the era of searchable archives and internet memory is that things you said years ago do not stay in the past. Interviews from a decade ago exist on YouTube. Tweets from 2012 can be screenshotted and resurfaced in 2024. Offhand comments made on a radio show that aired once are now permanently available to anyone with a search engine. This creates a very specific kind of on-camera moment that has become its own genre entirely. The show has clearly done the research. They have found the clip, the tweet, the interview, the quote. They have queued it up. And now they are sitting here with a very innocent expression on their face, waiting for the guest to walk directly into it. The guest sometimes senses it coming. They see the gleam in the host's eye. They notice the way the conversation is steering in a particular direction. They have the instinct that something is about to happen, but they cannot quite identify what it is, so they keep talking and hope for the best. And then the clip plays. Or the quote gets read aloud. And the guest has to sit there, in front of the cameras and the live audience, processing the fact that something they said in an unguarded moment has now become the centerpiece of a television segment. They have to react to themselves, to their own words, with the object of those words potentially sitting right next to them. The reactions in these moments are extraordinary. Some people laugh immediately, which is the right instinct, leaning into it, owning it, letting the audience in on the joke. Some people go red. Some people make a noise that is not quite a word. Some people attempt denial and then immediately abandon denial when they realize the clip is already playing. What makes these segments so reliably entertaining is that they reveal the gap between the public persona and the private person. The public persona is composed, polished, press-trained. The private person said something completely unguarded to an interviewer 3 years ago about someone they found extremely attractive. Both of these things are true simultaneously, and the moment the clip surfaces, they are both visible at once. Some crushes are momentary. A flash of chemistry in an interview, a mutual attraction that peaks in one televised moment and then fades back into something more professional. But some of them are different. Some of them persist. Some of them were there from the very beginning and somehow never went away, no matter how much time passed or how many polite professional interactions were layered on top of them. These are the ones that tend to come out in the most interesting ways. Because they are not a fresh, impulsive confession. They are something that has had years to develop, years to get complicated, years to become part of a longer personal history. And when they finally do come out, it is with the weight of all of that time behind them. There is something categorically different about hearing someone say they have had feelings for another person for years versus hearing someone say they developed a crush after working together for 3 months. Both are valid. But the long-standing one carries a different kind of resonance. It suggests something real. Something that did not just arrive and might not just leave. The body language in these moments is telling. People who are confessing something that goes back years tend to hold themselves differently. There is less of the nervous laughter you get with a newer, lighter confession. There is more stillness, more eye contact, more of a sense that this is not something that slipped out accidentally but something that was always there, waiting for the right moment to be said. And then the camera cuts to the other person. Who is listening? Who is processing? Who is sitting there being told something they may or may not have had any idea about, deciding in real time how to respond to information they were not expecting to receive today, on television, in front of all of these people. The grace required to handle that moment well is considerable. Some people rise to it beautifully. Some people freeze. Some people make a joke that lands perfectly. Some make a joke that does not land at all and then have to live with that forever. There is a special category of celebrity crush moment that does not involve any verbal confession at all. It is something more elemental than that. It is the moment when a celebrity simply forgets, for a few seconds, that they are being filmed, and their face does the thing that faces do when the person you are thinking about walks through a door. The expression changes. Not dramatically. Not in a way that is easy to describe. But in a way that is immediately recognizable to everyone watching. Something in the eyes. Something in the quality of the attention. A kind of softness that was not there a moment before and appears without any apparent decision being made about it. These moments are genuinely difficult to fake, which is what makes them so compelling to watch. You can rehearse a line. You can prepare an anecdote. You can train yourself to seem a certain way in front of cameras through years of practice. But you cannot really rehearse the involuntary response your face makes when someone you have genuine feelings for enters your field of vision. Hosts and producers know this. Which is why the format of the surprise appearance exists in the first place. The guest is mid-sentence, talking about something entirely different, and then the door opens. And whatever they were saying stops mattering because their face just told the whole story without a single word being required. The audience catches it before the guest even realizes they have given anything away. There is that moment of collective recognition, the audience sees it, the camera operator zooms in, and then the laughter starts, not at the guest, but with the delight of recognition, the pleasure of seeing something real emerge from what is usually a very controlled environment. By the time the guest understands that everyone just watched them react, the reaction is already over. The evidence is already captured. The comment sections are already writing themselves. We have covered the confessions and the bad meetings and the old receipts. But there is one more category that deserves its own space. The crush that someone was so attached to that they actively avoided meeting the actual person. The fantasy that